Hello and welcome back to Gaming Bench. I've got a special game for you today. It's Pneumata, a Resident Evil 1-to-be. This game came out, 2 weeks ago. I happened to get it for whatever reason. Don't judge me. I like Resident Evil. They're fine. Anyway, I thought I'd see how it runs. It uses Unreal Engine. I thought, hey, let's see what a single indie developer can do with Unreal Engine. And the answer is, they can make a buggy game. I mean, it uses assets from the Unreal Marketplace and stuff like that. I won't get into that. Let's just see how it runs. 1080p medium. That's my starting point. No upscaling. Upscaling was broken. The game shows that it has FSR and DLSS support. Neither one seemed to work in my testing. Maybe that will be fixed in a patch. The 3050 8GB and RX 6600 are basically performing on par. The Nvidia card does have lower minimum FPS. In general, it should be the slower card. That they're tied probably means there's other bottlenecks at play, and we will definitely see that as we go to the higher cards. Moving up to the RTX 4060 and the 7600 XT, the Nvidia card has a slight advantage, about 190 FPS compared to 180 FPS, and their minimums are right about the same, and what we'll see is most of the other cards that I'm going to look at 1080p medium, they all seem to have minimum FPS of around 120 frames per second. So here's the 4070 and the 7900 GRE, and you can see the 7900 GRE is running faster. It's about 215 frames per second compared to just over 200 frames per second on average, but they're both getting the same 119 FPS minimum. And I will show you the XTX and 4080 Super last, because what's interesting here is that their performance is virtually the same as the step-down cards that I just showed, except for minimum FPS was higher on the XTX, but they're both getting 214 frames per second. The 4080 Super is only like 1.5% faster than the 4070, so clearly we've hit CPU bottlenecks. And you can see that in the overall chart. You know, that almost vertical line on the right and on the minimum FPS shows that we're running into some bottlenecks. I'm not trying to bash the game. I will say 1080p medium does not look great. If you flip back and look at the medium quality, like this, here I'll show you. Here's medium quality, and now let's go ahead and kick up to epic quality, because this is Unreal Engine, and so it's not ultra quality, it's epic quality. And what you can see is that epic looks a lot darker and moody. There's a lot more environmental detail, but the game also runs a lot slower. So back to the 6600 and the 3050. AMD's card is now performing about 20% faster, and that's pretty typical of these two GPUs. That's not surprising. Going up a level, 4060 and the 7600 XT. The 4060 is faster. VRAM doesn't appear to be a major issue here, at least VRAM capacity, and so it makes sense that the 4060 does outperform the 7600 XT. It's almost 30% though, which is larger than normal, and so that indicates maybe Nvidia's drivers just in general tend to work better with this game and this game engine when no additional optimizations are done, because I'm sure Nvidia and AMD driver teams aren't out there going, hey, let's test Pneumata and make sure that it runs fine because it's such a popular game that no one's buying and it's got negative reviews on Steam. 4070 and 7900 GRE. Remember what I was saying about the Nvidia drivers doing better? That's what you see here. Normally the GRE is faster, especially, at these lower settings, and especially for, a rasterization game. But here this 4070 is getting 102 frames per second compared to 97 frames per second. So it's not like a huge gap, but it's definitely in Nvidia's favor. And finally at the top we've got the 4080 Super and the XTX, the 7900 XTX. And here again, we see Nvidia's almost got a 20% lead in performance, which normally you don't see that unless you're talking about ray tracing. So clearly Pneumata is running better on Nvidia hardware right now. And that's going to apply as we kick up to 1440p as well. So let's go ahead and do that. And the 3050 and the RX 6600, they are struggling now. They're in the mid-20s on average, dropping down into the upper teens, and it's not going to be super playable. If you had upscaling, you could turn it on, but the DLSS and FSR support that's listed in the menus of the game right now, it just didn't do anything. That's another bug because it's a one-man developer team. So cut them some slack. RTX 4060, RX 7600 XT, Nvidia's card is about, 33% faster, 1/3 faster. So again, that's larger than normal difference, I would say. And the same goes for the other cards. The RTX 4070 is shown here, beating the 7900 GRE. It's about almost 10%. That's not normally the case for a rasterization game unless there are driver issues that are holding back the AMD card, or I guess it could be the Nvidia card if it were the other way, but in this case it's Nvidia who's doing better. And then finally, at 1440p Epic, the RTX 4080 Super is cruising along, getting almost 120 frames per second, and the 7900 XTX is floundering along at just under 90 frames per second. So that's like another 30% difference in performance, and that's a pretty big deal for those two cards. Clearly, it doesn't run as well on AMD hardware right now, probably because it's a one-man developer team and he hasn't had optimization time for the various GPU architectures. Maybe he has an RTX card, and so in his development and testing, that's why it runs okay on Nvidia hardware. All right, last but not least, we have 4K Epic settings, and we're going to drop the slowest two cards because they don't really make sense. In fact, I'll also drop the 7600 XT because it was struggling as well. And so we'll just jump straight to the RTX 4070 and the 7900 GRE. They're getting closer to performance. GRE has more memory bandwidth, it has more memory, so as you increase the resolution, you need to have more memory bandwidth to transfer all of that texture data and stuff and work on all the pixels. And so that's where you usually see the cards with more memory and bandwidth will catch up, and that's what's happened here. But that doesn't apply universally because the 4080 Super has so much memory bandwidth and processing power that it doesn't run out. And so it's getting 66 frames per second. The 7900 XTX is only getting 47 frames per second. That's a huge difference for cards that otherwise should be about the same level of performance for a non-ray tracing game. Here's the final chart. 4060 is at the bottom. I didn't show any gameplay footage from that at 4K just because it didn't really make sense since it's only getting 23 frames per second. So that's it. Not trying to bash on the developer. Your game needs some work. You know that. Everyone knows that who's played it. That's fine. Maybe don't compare yourself to Resident Evil in your text and try and make it sound like you're better. That'd be my advice. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this one, and have a great day. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.